thank you all for being here today. We're so excited to host Krish from Chargebee, which is one of the most impressive SaaS businesses that's out there today, and actually one that we at AbstractOps use ourselves and did a ton of work deciding how do we choose the right billing platform. So it's really exciting for us to have Krish here to talk about the journey that he's gone through as a startup founder, building a company in India, and now for global ambitions. And we were actually, just before we kicked off our call, getting into a deep discussion about what that means to build a business that's global with teammates everywhere. And so I'm just excited to go through this conversation because understanding the founder journey and what that looks like as a founder to build a global business are things that really, I think, apply to certainly everybody who's on this call, but really anyone who wants to build a successful startup business. So Krish, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much. Right. Very rarely we get to we try to invite our customers into our all hands, right? So we would love to host you in that. And so this is a fantastic opportunity to come and talk. And I just want to say that one of the things I deliberately want to do is make sure that we speak, right? I know we are recording, right? But I'm going to assume that we are not going to publish the recording, but be very candid and talk about mistakes, learnings, which I think will be the most valuable takeaways for others. So feel free to probe me into things that you feel like, okay, now that would have been broken. I don't believe you. Feel free to just ask those questions. Let's just talk about it. Frankly.
Okay. All right. If you're saying I can do that, be careful what you wish for. But so, I mean, first off, tell me about your journey, right? So it was, looking at your LinkedIn and it's been about 11 years since you started Chargebee and you reached unicorn status this year, which is an amazing accomplishment, right? So many companies never, ever reach that place. In fact, 90% of startups fail, let alone reach well over $1 billion in valuation. So what were the major challenges to even getting to that point? I mean, think back 11 years, what did you have to do at the beginning to get to this point today? If there's some high level takeaways.
More than what we actually try to do, I can actually, what helped us keep going. We found product market fit almost 4.5 years into the journey. And I'll admit that.
That's great. Just even that, 4 to 5 years into the journey was when you finally found product market fit. I mean, today, these years you need to find it in 12 months.
It was good. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's almost like ephemeral thing. You almost it's almost like it's a feeling, right? More than there is a data that tells you that, okay, you have a few hundred customers, you have close to $1 million in revenue. It's just one part. But there is also the other part of what effort does it take to actually pull month on month, and does it actually happen like a machinery, right? Where you feel like the repeatability is there, and then you feel like this can scale, right? It's almost a feeling, right? To get to that point, it took us 4.5 years. Till that point, we did have some good customers, and we have a few hundred customers and some revenue, but it was almost like a grind and a pull every month to actually get to the next level. And then once we actually hit that, and then it felt like, whoa, so this is what it's supposed to feel like, because you can see that it's actually growing really nicely. It took us that 4.5 years. I can talk about some of those, but more importantly, I think, right, with that as the challenge, right, the hardest part was keeping the energy level to keep going. Right now, how do you reframe it, right? Because it's very easy to lose all the early people, right? Keeping our own motivation level to want to keep going, all of that becomes a huge factor in this journey, right? So the backstory is 10 years of experience before starting Chargebee. 4 of us started Chargebee. And the reason behind starting up was to want to build a company, right? It was not an idea first company to say, I want to start subscription billing. Is not how we started.
What was the starting core idea?
This is the same idea, but we just quit and decided that we are going to build a company. We quit, and then we looked at 2-3 ideas which one to solve, and then we had decided that it's going to be SaaS API first product. And we said, okay, which one do we want to solve? And then we spent a month picking something, and then we just started building it. Right? And we felt like, okay, this problem has enough moat and complexity in it that we can keep building. And some parameters okay, we wanted to build something global. All of us had experience mostly working with global customers, and I had throughout our 10-12 year career, right, that's what we had done, mostly working with B2B customers globally. Fortunate that my co-founders worked at Zoho, which was serving global customers, and I come from product implementation background, and mostly again global experience is that's all we knew, right? We bootstrapped the company. We did not raise capital out of the gate. So
what
had
made
no
you
intention
decide to
of
do that? Was capital
we
not
had no thought of,
available, or did you just
we
wasn't
just
even
thought
a thing?
it was not even a thing. We just didn't even think that we wanted to raise capital, because the idea was to learn to build a company, and we were saving up over 8-9 years to say at some point we'll quit and start. We just did not know when. Companies like Basecamp, Joel Spolsky's joelonsoftware.com blog, like these were our inspirations, and Zoho itself, right? These were the inspirations to say at some point we wanted to start. So it was a journey of wanting to build a company. So the good news was we didn't have a time frame to say by this time we should have hit this metric, otherwise we are going to quit, was not there. We just wanted to build. So it was more of a survival thing to say, let's just not run out of money at any point in time. and then we just wanted to do this. That's it, right? Forever was basically the idea. So that, I think, thankfully the underlying context was helpful for us to not put pressure on ourselves to say, oh, this is not working now, are we going to pivot? And it was more of like, what do we need to do to actually figure this out? And we were just unpeeling the onion, right? Peeling away the onion at any point in time to actually figure this out is what was happening for us. That's one. And feel free to interrupt, Adam, right? Think about the audience and then go.
I still want to even go back to the point you brought about like the two key things around like keeping energy up for the team. Like, how did you do that over 4.5-5 years where, growth, it sounds like was good, but slow, right? It wasn't like hockey stick up to the right, immediate growth. How do you keep just yourselves as founders energized and then let alone the whole team?
Some things we did well was not to frame everything around our revenue. Right? We decided most of our conversations, all hands and like transparent conversations, where like we used to share everything within the team, and maybe still do, right? And then we also used to talk about the framing of the problem used to be like success and progress used to be about the customers, like early customers like Freshworks, Soylent, and others. Like, how are they using the product? What feature are they adopting? And then feature adoption, how's it going? Like, what do we need to improve? We kept the focus on like, what are we building for the customers and how are the customers actually progressing, and kept that around it. So even if it was not all our customers were growing amazingly well, because our product market fit was not great to attract them. Like, all customers were not the best customers for us, but we could actually always talk about some customers who were like using it beautifully. So pretty much all the conversations, and you never run out of customer conversations, right? As long as you have like good customers who are using it. That, I think, was, in hindsight, I'm able to see that was super helpful. Thankfully, we didn't claim victory around, oh, let's look at our churn rate, let's look at our monthly revenue growth rate. Was never the point of the conversation. It was all anchored around it. I think that was the saving grace. In hindsight, I'm able to imagine, because you can do that for 3 quarters when it's working. When there is going to be a month when it doesn't work, then what do you talk about?
Right. But you still have that customer story. And so to reframe that, you're basically saying, talk about the success you're enabling for your customers, right? The joy that you're bringing, that they get from your product, how you're making their life better. And that's a win for obviously your company internally and your clients. And so, revenue maybe is flat for a quarter or something, but you still have all these customer successes.
Right. And the more important one was, okay, do we have the money to keep, like one was, okay, we have to run payroll and make sure everybody feels like, okay, we can take salary, right? So we were transparent about that part to say, okay, now after 18-24 months, we had raised money. So we used to talk about that to say, don't worry about it. You're not running out of money, right? Yes, we are not charging enough. Our pricing is screwed up. We have to iterate and then figure out a bunch of things. But is the product working well? Look at this customer, right? And then what are the asks from this customer? What are we actually building? And how is it going to change that? And who else is actually evaluating us and all of that? All of that helped anchor the conversation around what is actually keeping us motivated, and being authentic about it was what we were basically talking about in a startup, right? So people join for different reasons, and many people also take chances to say they want a better future, but how long they can keep going? If they see through it, if we actually talk about like metrics that we are not able to back up, it becomes very hard for people to stay, right? We have people who have stayed with us for now over 9 years. There are many people who have, I saw that the other day, there were 36 people who have completed now 9 years. Wow. And then more than 6 people who have completed more than 8 years. So it is actually beautiful to see that the first developer is still with us, who's now building different things. I credit a lot of this to thankfully and deliberately anchoring around customer conversations.
Yeah.
So the narration has not changed. They don't feel like we are trying to sell something or trying to project progress for the sake of it, but it's just honest, truthful assessment of what's broken has been very super helpful to keep our own motivation going and also talk about that.
Yeah. So just always being transparent with the team, being honest about it, and helping them. And I guess part of it, of course, is the team having a faith and trust in you and the leadership team that you're going to tell them the truth, that you're going to watch out for the big picture. Obviously, make sure salaries get paid, but watch out for the big picture, but continue to deliver customer wins.
Right. By the way, I'll tell you the harder part, right? I used to struggle with going and telling the investors on a regular, like Axel is one of the friendliest early stage investors, right? And still, the hardest part was you cannot keep doing that with the investor, right? Of course, their job is to also ask those questions.
Right. They want to see growth. They don't want to just see lots of happy customers. I mean, happy customers are good, but.
Right. And so that one doesn't work from that perspective, right? You can keep talking about, the beautiful thing was somebody like a Shaker, who I still talk to him as a friend and a counsel now for advice on a regular basis. He used to ask questions about like, why are they using it, right? And he used to talk about thinking long term to say, okay, think about what you're seeding today, because it doesn't matter if you get like 10 more, some random customers, but I want you to think about like 10 right customers who will actually drive your product in the right way. All of that is good. And you still want to show progress because it's an investor. And then you yourself, with this, the moment you start looking at the data, you realize that, okay, actually it's not going in the right direction. So that is actually necessary friction in the process. But the part that I used to struggle was, what do you then go and explain? The only thing I could actually go and tell them sometimes was to like be brutally honest about it, and then talk about, yes, this is not working, but I see these set of customers who are working, right? But that help introspect to think about like, what type of customers do I want more of?
Yeah.
And that segmentation, right? I wish I had learned the importance of looking backwards into the data to segment it more and more till you find a common pattern of where are you finding, like, who are your best customers? Where did you find those best customers? How do I find more of those best customers? I think that the whole thing crux around the product market fit goes back to basically this, in my opinion. Once you have like broad set of customers, this is why I'm scared whenever somebody says like with confidence that I exactly know this is the type of customers I want. Like when you are at 5 or 10 customers, I'm generally worried, because it's okay. Like it's like college days where you have all the freedom out of college to explore like different career options before you actually say, this is what I love. Don't just like, because you never know, right? There is maybe an underserved market of large number of customers who will pull you in a different direction. Don't be too sure about it. It's okay to have that little bit of uncertainty in getting those first 50, 100 customers, that you have the right mix of customers to find that pattern where you say, okay, now this looks good, and I'm also having a lot of joy building for them, right? Might actually pull you in a very different direction.
And what are the key things you look for to figure out what that joy was, right? I mean, if to me, I would say, being very simplistic, if a customer is willing to pay me money for my product, and maybe they don't bother us too much, or they don't bother our support team too much, that seems like a good customer. I mean, are you saying like be even more focused and be really, really specific?
No, it's a very good vector lens through which we can look at it. But your own pricing may be broken, that they are not paying you more at that stage, right? Because pricing is a reversible decision, right? So that's why I say, don't try to get it right in the beginning. You can iterate it and then find your right pricing for new customers at any point in time. Like somebody like a Freshworks might have started with us with like something completely broken based on like whatever notion that we had, like number of invoices and all of that in the early stage. But now we fixed it like based on, okay, what's your revenue stage? What are the other things that we offer that's not even part of the product, but services like compliance, audit. Like as a public company, there is so much more that we do that goes beyond the product, that actually changes our pricing structure for a larger customer. So you can always fix that. But the part I actually say we should definitely be obsessed about is, how are they using the product? Is a perceived value of usage, and if you talk to them, even if they don't pay you, right, you know that they are actually going to get continuously increased value, and the value vectors that through which you want to charge them is this right North Star metric. Like if you are building a help desk system, you should have more people who are just creating support tickets, right? Your customer should be creating more and more support tickets, whether it's through bots or some whatever that is. But that vector you wanted moving, right? For us, it was their processing volume. They should be generating more invoices. They should be making more money. If they are actually making more money, we know that we are on the right path. Like Soylent was an early customer. Phenomenal, right? I found him on Twitter, like John Cogan's founder and CTO wrote about it. And then he said, hey, can I do it? And then 45 minutes later in the demo, I onboarded him and he just migrated everything. But they got like so much press. Either people loved Soylent or they just hated Soylent. There was no in between.
I tried it. Yep.
Right? And they grew like crazy. And it was fun building for them because they were hungry for specific feature capabilities like allow me to import API, right? Every use case, which is an exception to manage subscription billing, right? That's what you want to build for. There were agencies who were trying to use Chargebee, right? And they might have like 10 customers that they will do recurring invoices for, but they were asking for like, give me invoice customization, change templates, right? They were actually thinking of it like a invoicing system like FreshBooks for $15 per month, and they were comparing us against it. And the feature requests were completely different from like a highly scalable business for which we are building.
Yeah. So how did you choose though between, because I mean, when you have like 50, 100 different customers, they might all have different requests, right? Some are like these other companies and they all have different requests. So how do you really decide which ones to focus on? Because it's very dangerous, I think, for a lot of startups to have some big customers
it's a huge distraction.
build us these features. And like, you want to help support them because they're paying a lot of money, but they might not be the right kind of customer for you.
Right. I think the hypothetical scenario of like thinking, anchoring around, I wish I had known this to look at it through the lens, but something like a net retention rate, right, is very helpful. Like, I'm not saying go look at that number because it may be too early, but I would say, like, will this customer pay me more and more? Why will they pay me more and more over the years? Just trying to think about that, like having the list of customers in a spreadsheet and then just looking at that customer and saying, if the customer grows, right, and continues to use the product, why will they pay me more? Is it going to be more number of users? If you are a CRM system or a CPQ system, you should be thinking, okay, the customer is going to add 50 more salespeople, and my vector is, my value metric is based on number of salespeople, and I'm going to charge extra $49 for every new salesperson. But think about how quickly will they add a new salesperson, right? It's going to be one a quarter, like one a year. How many will they add, right? And then you will find that some customers are not going to actually use you. Like, they will not even add number of salespeople, but they're actually using you differently. I think going back to your own value metric, usage, and why will they pay you more is a good way to filter, right? For us, if I look at the agency as a customer who is also doing recurring billing, I clearly know that the agency will not scale the number of invoices because it's not a non-linear business. Versus a Soylent, they don't have to hire 100 people to get 10,000 customers. They can scale, right? And that's my perfect customer.
And did you end up then saying, like, we're just going to keep building these products for that customer and go down that route? And if yes, how did you think about, like, and this may be a good segue into overall for like Chargebee itself, right? Who today is Chargebee best suited for? Why should anybody who's on this call, anyone else, think about why should I be using a billing system in general? And then certainly, why should I be using Chargebee on top of it?
Sure. Right. So I think a lot of things are continuously changing in the market, right? And the last 4 to 5 years, the narration and the perception of CTOs or even the early stage founders, as well as like later stage companies, about the appreciation for the what do I even want to do this is changing about this particular category of a problem, right? Because see, the world is becoming more complex with respect to, like, the opportunity is we can all sell globally if you have a digital product, right? If you have a digital product, you can.
The world is your oyster, right? You can sell anywhere in the world, which is an amazing thing nowadays.
Right. And you might have like a strong competition in North America, but you can pick LATAM and say, okay, I'm going to build this for that market and still be able to do it from wherever you are. I think that possibility is there. But the complexity of actually launching into a LATAM to even explore is, or a Europe is, local tax laws. You need withholding taxes, right? If you sell into Brazil, you need to be withholding the taxes before you actually sell into that country. Otherwise, it becomes a liability, right? Do you expect your CTO to actually want to understand how do I do it? Right? May not happen, which is where somebody like a Chargebee comes into play to help you become day one global as quickly as possible, explore the market, and do it, right? If it's early stage, right, that allows you to just abstract the problem and keep it like you may want a super simple set of features, go do that. And as you continue to grow, like you may have like product-led growth that's working where customers are finding through self-service, or you may have sales background that you're finding like directly onboarding customers, one of these two. But to get to the unlock the next stage of growth, there are a few vectors to grow, right? Which is you need like your complex sales process comes in, that requires but same onboarding process. Chargebee has it all like done, ready to go, so you don't have to ask. You can quote, give currency, you can give a different quote or a draft invoice to the customer simply because you get a larger customer. You can like enable currencies, you can just configure taxes and connect different gateways like PayPal and also Stripe, right? All of that is possible, is how we think about it. I'll stop here. I don't want to sell Chargebee here, right?
No. And a question for you too, right? So like for AbstractOps, we went through this process about a year ago, deciding what do we need to keep doing for billing. So we were doing everything on QuickBooks, right? Which QuickBooks we already had. QuickBooks billing is essentially free. It's very manual and it's time consuming. But as a small early stage startup, free is a good price, right? I'll take that all day long. And Chargebee isn't free. I mean, it costs a pretty good amount of money. Why should a startup, what is like the thinking that, I can talk about our journey, but like, what is the thinking that you think a startup should say, okay, I need to move off of just either doing manual invoices myself and generating them on my computer and sending them to the customer and then doing accounts receivable, versus then even doing it on QuickBooks, which is a little bit more automated, or then make a big jump into something like a Chargebee.
Beautiful. Right. I think I'll connect this to some lessons here, right? Which is we did not have freemium then, right? But in 2016, we introduced freemium. We do have a freemium tier, and we are continuing to expand the freemium tier, right? Today, we offer $100,000 of free invoicing for free, right? So that customers start with something like a QuickBooks and later on discover.
So just get started on Chargebee right off the bat. And get
so that is what we are trying to do by having a freemium tier, right? But the trick here is like we cannot keep giving this as a free version if you want to keep investing in the product. But how do we find the balance? So we created a limited freemium tier based on customer interviews, right? I asked some customers who actually evaluated us but did not use, but they had scaled later, right? And then I went and asked them. This was late 2015, and customer was like, okay. At that time, our pricing was something like $79 a month or something like that. He said, I don't want to even pay for $79 or $99 at that time because I did not have a single paying customer. But once I got like 10, 20 customers, now I can see why I shouldn't have built it. Because it's a lot of effort goes into maintaining it, which I don't think is valuable to my customers. So that was a good input for us to actually introduce a freemium tier, right? And then we said, okay, so by jumping to a $299, which is the listed pricing plastered all over on the website, actually has a $299, which might look like a jump, too steep a jump. So we introduced a $99 tier for customers to gracefully. If you go into the launch page, you will see that there is actually a $99 plan that we automatically upgrade the customer into, because you are only at $5,000, $10,000 monthly recurring revenue. You don't want to pay $299, right? So how do we ensure that we can gracefully take them to the next level is how we have tried to do it. But it's the way we now we think about this is it's a continuous experimentation. Yeah. The reason why we did not put 99 there is we want to still have the perception of a premium offering, right? By making customers stop and ask, like, why are these people even charging $299? What is the value I should assign to this, and understand the complexity? Then I'm very happy to offer them a freemium. And I would like some customers to disqualify us early on if they think I don't want to be paying this much for this product. Like
how should a customer be thinking about the value in general, right? Like so for us at AbstractOps, when we were thinking through it, my analysis was fairly simple, which was the amount of time it takes for us to generate invoices manually is a lot. Right. Then we have to track it, all these other things. So the time very quickly became not a good use of my time or my team's time to go build it. Is that the right lens for other startups to think about? Like what is the key buying decision?
Right. It comes down to persona, right? You as a tech person, CTO or a CEO, right, would assign a different value to your team, to the time. And you would look at it through a different lens to evaluate, right? And if I'm actually dealing with, let's just say, instead of you, if it was actually, let's say, an accountant or a virtual accountant, a CFO that you are hired, a service, and they are evaluating on your behalf, they'll be thinking, I'm sending only 10 invoices right now. Do I even want to pay like $2.99 or $99 to these people. They will actually quickly eliminate.
I can charge the customer a lot of money for me to do this manually anyways. So
yeah, I can just go generate it in an invoice, right? They're thinking invoices and I can do it manually. So they assign it very differently. So it goes to qualifying the right personas in the evaluation process and all of that, right? If you are dealing, today we sell majority of our customers, we sell to directors of finance or CFO in the later stage. But by that time, the complexity of the problem has elevated in their organization, and they are ready to say, they don't even want to evaluate the product directly by signing up. Instead, a CFO comes in and says, show me a demo. I'm going to bring in my VP of IT. My CEO said, we are going to change it. Now it becomes an org-wide mandate. So it has evolved. Whenever we deal with a customer who is going to pay us like $300,000 or $500,000, our conversation changes completely differently because it's an org-wide mandate and a different persona was buying it, compared to early stage customer where the CEO will assign the value differently versus early stage companies, finance person will assign it differently.
And I assume part of the thesis, and I want to talk a little bit more about pricing analysis, because that's always been that so many startups have trouble with, and you guys, in a sense, probably are better experts at this than anyone else. But when you think through the different, like getting an early stage startup on the system, I assume you probably lost a lot of money on AbstractOps early on because you needed a lot of support. Your team was helping us a bunch. You weren't charging us a lot of money. But I'm guessing, and tell me if this is correct, the thesis though is that once we get on Chargebee, the likelihood of us churning and going to some other one of your competitors is fairly low. Now, not every startup who gets on Chargebee is going to be successful, but the ones who are, hopefully AbstractOps, we become, another massive company someday, and then we're doing a few $100,000 or $1 million in revenue to Chargebee because we have so many invoices we're sending on a regular basis.
Right. I think that's the hardest part as a lesson for all of us, right, in the early stage, right, which is especially around freemium, the hardest part is to figure out, like, am I willing to invest? Because it's very hard, because it's going to take a long time before you even know if this freemium is going to really work out for you.
Yeah.
So for us, the scary part was when we introduced this in late 2015, early 2016, we just had no data points to actually know this. But we knew that if we introduce freemium, all of our early stage customers are also likely to say, switch me to freemium.
Of course, you lose money right off the bat. They'll turn around and I want the lower price.
That's just one part of it. Are we willing to take a one-time hit? The second part is, how long will it take for us to actually build up that revenue, right? And get some paying customers on a monthly basis, as well as these premium cohort to build, right? So there are enough number of premium customers that some of them will start becoming paying customers every month. Right.
So it took us 9 to 12 to disrupt months. Yourself, right? You're like basically disrupting yourself at the low end, which is scary, right? Your board was like, okay, you're going to cut off all this revenue for a revenue increase in like 4 or 5 years, basically.
Driven by a hunch or a gut feeling or customer interviews is what you do. I think that the trick here for me in hindsight, the biggest learning is aligning your freemium around the right value metric becomes the key. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a quote software, right? You are going to send quotes. Align yourself around, like, if you say every month you can send 10 free quotations using your platform, the challenge is at what point does a company scale to a level where they are now ready to say, I'm going to send 11 quotations every single month, right? How many RFPs do every one of us get, right? Very limited number. So it may take forever, which means that you will never have that customer as a paying customer for a very, very long time. Or you may need like 100,000 free customers before you will find like 10 of them graduating out of it every single month, right?
And the small customers need a lot of work a lot of time. And it takes a lot of work.
But the other way you can think about for the same thing, right? You could actually think about it very differently, where you say, if one user is going to generate a quote, then I can keep it free, right? Or if you want to generate the quote and send it with my logo, right, and you are comfortable with giving free advertisement, then I'm going to do it. Or up to 10 first quotations, I'll give it to you for free in aggregate. But from the 11th quotation onwards, you're going to become a paying customer. These are all friction points. It's up to you to determine, right? There's no right or wrong answer. I would say test some of these things to find out if the willingness to pay, and think through these as thought experiments in freemium, as well as do that. I think is super helpful, right? And then you can always, within 3 months, you'll have enough data to at least go back and figure out, like, do I want to experiment with this? But it was actually pretty scary because there's going to be a lot of sunk effort. Customers are customers, no matter whether they are going to be a paying customer or a free customer, and they expect support, right? Whether it's email-based or something that you can determine. But the expectations are very similar. They want a functional product. So which means that there are promises to keep. The challenge is how long can you do it, and how much bandwidth are you willing to allocate becomes the hardest part of trying freemium, right? It's scary, right? I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. I would say deliberately talk to enough people and do thought experiments to test your hunch, and just don't blindly go into freemium because it can be very painful.
Yeah, no, it probably seems like an alluring thing to go freemium because the market is so large. Because of course, if people don't have to pay, they'll go sign up. But there's so many costs that people don't think about all the time, which can lead to just major danger for company expenses.
Yeah.
So I want to end on.
I don't want to scare people away from freemium, right? I think you should absolutely try free trial as well as premium, right? And experiment with it a lot. But I'm just saying, I'm asking people to be cautious about it, but don't walk away from it, right? Because it could actually become a competitive differentiation if you could actually have freemium. Because one, you remove, like, I think there is a Joel Spolsky's beautiful blog on this topic of removing exit barriers to improve the entry barrier, right? So which means that, so every barrier that you remove, right, increases your like point of entry by 50% more. So you remove friction by saying, I don't want a password, right? Just removing password field in the sign up process doubles your conversion. You say you don't need to email verify before you actually see my product because you can do delayed email verification, improves that by another 50%, right? So there is a certain like value to this, but think about whether it's a single door or a two-sided door, right? One-sided door or two-sided, reversible decision, and then go for it.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I have another question, but I'm going to open it up to the audience. But one thing I will say, and we'll lead into this question if we have time for it, is I was so impressed when we were getting started with Chargebee, and even thinking about it, we were negotiating with you and a few of your other competitors. And even, a year ago, and you guys were obviously a big company then and are a big company today, you guys were still experimenting on pricing. And I remember the salesperson said, oh, that pricing thing, that was a product experiment. It's over now. Like, we just did this experiment. It's over. We're not sure it's going to work. We'll let you know if there's a new deal. And you guys were still experimenting even at your size. And just, I think it's so impressive that a company of your size is still willing to iterate, change, try things up, especially in a public fashion where you have customers like us who are potentially signing up. And it's like your product team is leading these pricing experimentation. It's pretty impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. I am a fan of just thinking of this as a pricing as a roadmap and experiment rather than thinking of a way to actually get it right, because I don't believe that you never ever get it right. If you want proof point, the easiest one is to go to Shopify's pricing page, go to web.archive.org and then say shopify.com/pricing. Look at the historical pricing and how they evolve, right? Every few months, they continue testing it, especially from 2014 or 2012 or later. You will find that they were very obsessed about the pricing experimentation. Same story for Zendesk. Zendesk is a fantastic one as an example. Like, they used to have these plans called enterprise plan. And it's a funny one, right? Because within 2 months later, they even threw another plan called enterprise plus plan. And the difference between enterprise plan and enterprise plus plan was they said, we will also commit to SLAs in enterprise plus plan. I was like, okay. So you didn't have any feature to actually do it. But that plan was per agent was actually priced like insanely high. Probably a lot of customers were asking for a discount even on enterprise plan. So they needed a pricing anchor. So they said, okay, there's an enterprise plan. This is a price. And then I can imagine the sales conversation where the salesperson will say, okay, you know what? I'm going to give you enterprise plus plan on the enterprise price. Right?
Yep. And the customer's excited and happy. They got this big discounted deal when it's the same price it was 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's probably 100 agent customer who's coming in and buying, right? At least it gives them a pricing anchor, even if they actually discount by 10% instead of 50% on the enterprise plan. It's a win. Right?
Yeah,
that's
I love that.
Agents.
That's exactly right. Right. Pricing is not just about what you actually charge, but it's almost a marketing play to get your customers in the door and feeling good about the price they're paying. On that note, I want to make sure, Sachi, if there are some questions from the audience, because I know we have only a few minutes left. So I want to make sure you answer some questions if there are some.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Krish.
Go ahead. I think I see Vivek's question, if I may just take it directly from the chat.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Right. See, I think it's okay. As somebody who's selling billing, I'll just say, just don't build it. That's all. Right. I think your mileage may vary, but we try to have freemium and all of that. from the early stage, so you don't have to build it, right? I don't believe that you have to build it yourself. That one doesn't make sense. Whichever one that you pick, right? Whether you build on Stripe or a Chargebee doesn't make a difference.
I'll just add really quickly there. I'll just add that on that point. One thing we talk about with our customers all the time, in all really startups, and the advice I give other startups is only build your core products. Don't focus on anything else that isn't your core product. So unless you're building a solution, use your own product then, right? But other than that, don't build your own billing platform. There's great companies like Chargebee out there to do this for you that focus exclusively on making this great. Go focus on making your company and your core product amazing. That's the only thing you should focus on.
That's true, right? The amount of sunk effort into anything that doesn't directly help you find product market fit, I think is a lost cost of opportunity, especially time, right? That you cannot claim back.
Exactly right.
Sorry, Sachi, right? You were about to ask something.
No, I was actually just going to moderate the question. So,
sure, please.
Yeah. So Blake has a question, which is on, the whole discussion on freemium. It says, as far as freemium goes, did you say you recommended not having a user create a login or do email verification? If so, why?
Oh, okay. So it was not related to freemium as such, but I was just saying everything related to the point of actually getting somebody to get to use your product, right? That friction point, if you remove it, it's good, and treat all of them as experiments, right? Even all the way from delayed email verification is good, because if somebody signs up, don't say, go to your inbox, click on that link before you actually access the product. Try to say, first time you're signing in, I'll let you in. Why do you need to verify email? Because is this a valid email ID? Can they come back to, can they set the password and log in second time? Is when you need them to remember the email as well as set a password. So all we say is, we just broke the process into 2 parts or 3 parts to say, okay, you can sign, just put the email ID, no password, you can go explore the product. And then you have an email that you verify. So second time login, you enforce them to say, I want you to click on that link, verify your email before you come back. And just that one change in step generally has a 50% improvement in the number of people who are able to explore your product. The more people who experience your product, the better it is for you and opportunity to engage, because then your number of sessions goes up, right? An opportunity they may ask you a question in a chat, which means that product qualified lead, right? That level goes up. So my comment was related to that, Blake.
Awesome. I think there was a question earlier, which you did speak about, but I think it'd be helpful to understand, who is Chargebee the best fit for when it comes to startups? Is it just subscriptions billing? Is it those that have more of a sales process using a CRM system? Who would you recommend Chargebee is the best fit for?
Okay. Any business that's actually subscription first in revenue, we are a good fit, right? We are even more of a strong fit if you have diverse set of customers globally. It's even better, right? There is accumulated debt in compliance exposure when most of us do not know that you're supposed to file a reverse VAT in Europe or things like that. That continues to happen. So from the very beginning, if you have recurring revenue, I think we are a good fit, right? And we have something packaged at every stage of growth is how we think about it. We have strong B2B, we have a strong presence in B2B API first companies that want to do that. And we also provide plug and play solutions. So that means you can integrate and use Chargebee with almost 0 line of code. That is also possible, right? So there are, my favorite example is a company that actually got acquired by Intuit. The founder did not integrate into their product at all. He said, okay, their product, the customers log in and then they start using, and he used to run everything in Excel sheet, right? Where he used to even keep track of who's logging in Excel sheet, and he just automated the flows. Just a core product is all he built. And then for the first few customers, he used to come into Chargebee, create subscription, put them on a plan. They would have activated it in the other side manually, and they did not even integrate. He set up Chargebee in 1 hour, and till they got to first 50 customers, he used to manually set up every subscription and let the billing run on autopilot here in Chargebee, completely separated out. But this is a Singapore-based entrepreneur, Patrick Barnes, phenomenal guy who just used to hustle and make sure that they do it. So from that perspective, I think you can do it from very early stage, and then we also serve all the way through post-IPO company, but the filter is majority of our revenue is like subscription first revenue.
Is there a difference between subscription-based revenue and, let's say, direct-to-consumer based revenue, or different companies like that? Or from your
just a recurring
overall
relationship with the customer, usage-based billing, right? All those models we support, like tier-based, stair-step pricing and all of that. I think the market is mature enough now that the products like us actually are now covering more and more scenarios that you can imagine. Like simple things like, okay, you want quotes, you want to like have a simple way in which you can roll out 6 different currencies straight away, right? And have the same plan name, but you can iterate on pricing and then override pricing. All of those things are covered because I think over the years, we've all made reasonable number of progress that it will take several years for you to internally catch up how to even iterate on pricing. How do I grandfather pricing for my existing customers? Because now I am having a change of heart. I'm going to change my price after 1 year. Right? How do I make sure old customers stay on old price, new customers get on new price? It's just easily solved problem in most of our cases. And this is why we have built it, right? So regardless of the stage, if you are having a recurring relationship with the customers, we have a way to solve it is where I would advise. Our strong fit is in like API first companies as well as primarily B2B, right? And a lot of B2C companies, but primarily B2B companies that are headless are even more attractive for us because you will get the most out of Chargebee.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know we're probably over time, I think, right now. But Krish, this was amazing. Thank you so much. I hope we can do this again because I have so many more questions still about like your journey. I want to know more about like the product market fit and how, like, once again, like I still want what happened in 5 years down the line where you finally decided you really, really had product market fit is like a fascinating question because so many startups are pushed all the time to like find PMF immediately, or otherwise you might be broken, you might not be successful. And also to all the people listening, as happy Chargebee customers ourselves, and we went through a whole process to decide what we would choose. We're happy that we made the choice, and thank you for having us as customers as well.
Thank you so much. Right. And if I may share a particular blog that I was super impressed with, I'll share this one more time. Right. This one, read it. I've not met Daniel like yet. Right. Just the deep thought process behind how he's actually scaling as an individual, building Spotify from early stage founder, building around his passion to now like building a public company is just amazing. So Observer Effect has like phenomenal blogs, and then I am a fan of this particular one, so I thought of sharing it.
Well, I will pull it up right here. I'm definitely going to read it, and we'll let you go, but I know like you've actually moved yourself to Europe, so maybe you will meet Daniel at some point soon since you're a little bit closer to him. I think he's still in Europe, who knows? But Krish, thank you so much again. Sincerely appreciate the time, and I hope we can do this again in the future.
Thank you, right, and all the very best to all of you. Right? Thank you. Right? Thanks for having me, Adam.
Appreciate it.
That's fun.
Thank you. Yep.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.